Hello, welcome to Actions to Wealth UK. I'm Ash Ball. We'll be taking you through this week's trading review or preview for the coming week of April the 3rd. Would have been April the 2nd, but I am a day late, which I apologise for. A bit of a wipeout weekend. It's all good and we haven't missed anything, so nothing to worry about too much there. So let's have a quick look at the data first, and then I will talk about a little bit what I am after and what I'd like to see this week. So last week we had some news from the states. Donald Trump tried to get his healthcare bill through Congress, which didn't pass, and it does indicate that he might find some resistance as trying to put through some of the more controversial bills in his plan as time goes on. So we need to watch out for what's going to happen with the dollar. He's also meeting Xi this week, maybe even today, to talk about the North Korean issue. And he's already made some slightly inflammatory comments about Xi. So there may be a little bit more stickiness to come from the dollar as time goes on. But mainly this week, I'd like to focus on the Aussie. And the Aussie's just had some retail sales out, which came in weaker than expected. And it's just weakened the Aussie that little bit further. Manufacturing from the pound also later this week is going to be a key driver for the way I'm going to be watching trades. Dollar ISM manufacturing production and PMI, trade balance, and the cash rate is on Tuesday out of Australia. Now this is the key level as always to watch out for, the RBA rate statement. Now they're looking for 1.5%, so in line with expectations. Data has not suggested anything stellar enough to suggest that that's going to move, so I would be looking for that particular number. So might see a little bit of fluctuations around the Aussie early doors this week, and then we'll start to see some clearer direction potentially after that number is released. Construction PMI is going to be of interest from the UK. Then we get trade balance from Canada, so Canada could be in focus. GDT price index from the Kiwi. I'm not going to be focused on the Kiwi this week. I was looking for moves last week and they haven't materialized. So turning my focus away from that particular currency. Services PMI is always key. That's a big number from the UK. That's the main driver in our GDP. So that will be a key number. If that's a beat, then we might see some significant moves to the upside in the pound as the shorts start to cover after the pound's significant sell-off over the last few months. Non-farm employment change will be interesting, as will the non-manufacturing PMI, crude oil inventories. But this is the real number, the real statement from the US this week, the FOMC meeting minutes, and that's going to be about inflation. So as we find out what's going on with the inflationary data from the US, that's going to give us a bit more of an indication what's going to happen with those rate rises. Will we get another 2? Will we possibly get another 3? Will we get another 1? So that could potentially change the sentiment in the dollar from Wednesday. Then unemployment change and manufacturing production from the pound. So again, quite an important number as the pound has been weakening over the last few months. We'd want to see that manufacturing production still coming up and giving us some decent growth. As you can see, the forecast is for some decent growth after being very disappointing the previous month. Unemployment change and employment rate out of Canada, and then non-farm and unemployment rate from the States. So you can see that the main crux of it is going to happen Tuesday and Wednesday. So I'll be watching out for what goes on with the Aussie and the pound specifically. Let's quickly start with the Aussie. The Aussie has been in a bit of a sell mode recently, but you can see that even though we have this inverted head and shoulders starting to form, left shoulder, there's the head, there's the right shoulder, I will be looking for some strength, but not necessarily enough strength to for that pattern to play out. But this is the area that the traders are watching right now. So looking for a bounce in this area and then looking to see what would happen at this particular price point as well. So that particular price point is going to be somewhere around the spot 76500-ish. So I'd like to see what happens in that particular area, and see if it's likely that we're going to drop or break through backtest and then start to move forward, and then we can start to aim for these highs again. So that's the first thing to consider with the Aussie. Now, the Aussie CAD has also been of interest recently, as that's had a significant sell-off. Head and shoulders, left shoulder, head, right shoulder. I wouldn't anticipate us to break through the neckline necessarily today. So I'd like to see what was to happen from here. I think a small bounce, and then if this is to start to sell off, then we can start to look for the neckline to be broken and more of a significant move to the downside. As you saw, the Canadian news could play a part in this as well. So if the Aussie is to start to bounce from this point, not get that interest rate change, and the market not like that particularly, and we see some decent numbers from Canada, then expect that to move, probably break the neckline, and then get something of a measured move in this area. So there's our points there. We can start looking for something around these areas down here, which is going to be 1.00370 kind of point if that measured move is to play out. So that's the Aussie. Now the other one will be the pound. So the pound, with all that data, and important data at that, the pound's had a really decent run specifically against the euro recently, but you can see that we are getting very close to a point of potential support here in euro pound. So if this is to come that little bit lower, we'll get the price that would be a little bit more attractive. So if it was to come down here before that data is released and that data comes in weaker, then I would be looking for a bounce in this euro pound. We have so far just about held this pattern. This started to look like a head and shoulders, but the right shoulder's now getting a little bit long in the tooth to continue that pattern. It probably just about qualifies. So if we do start to break down this particular point, but then this particular point, then we could be looking for something a bit more significant to the downside in the euro pound. Want to be watching out for levels like this, because that will also, considering how long that particular line has been starting to form. It hasn't really given us a proper trend line yet with only 2 touches, but considering how long that particular line started to form, then that will be a significant level of potential support. Now, if that does run along here, which it looks like it does, very close to in the next couple of days, then I would be looking for upside in the euro pound. So we can check out what the data looks like at that particular point. Quickly checking the pound dollar. Pound dollar has managed to form this W bottoming pattern, so that's looking pretty healthy, but we are now sitting at a potential, more significant potential point of resistance here. You can see that just there. That's on the weekly. So when we come to the daily, you can see that we're not that far away from that particular level. Looks like around about the ones. Well, let's have a quick look at what it is. These highs, this trend line, look like they might start to run in conjunction depending on what day that happens. Somewhere around the 1.6300, something like that. So not too far away from that, but any boost forward with weak data is going to get the pound a bit caged, and then we should probably anticipate a move to the downside, like the fact that we've broken through this particular level here and managed to kind of start to form this inverted head and shoulders. So moves to the downside might still get caught in this kind of range. And then as the months continue, we could start to see the pound just start finding a bit of footing down here. And when those shorts start to cover, then I would expect an explosive move to the upside. But these are the ones I'll be watching this week. The Canadian dollar probably against the Aussie specifically, and euro pound, and possibly pound dollar, depending on how that dollar reacts to the continued Trump effect. We need to be aware that the Europeans are very close to those French elections, so that is going to create a little bit of volatility. So we'll trust our patterns. Let's be professional, be vigilant, and make some money. Have a great week.